Hello art lovers and welcome back to my studio. I know it's been a while since I've shared a video, so let's get back into it. If you've watched my previous videos, you probably know that my husband and I recently relocated to a new city. And even though we're not totally settled because our apartment is still filled with boxes and kind of disheveled right now, I was itching to get back to painting and sharing my work with you all. Now, if you follow me on Instagram, you probably noticed that I put my traditional art supplies away about 5 months ago, and I have been using Procreate to color and sketch digitally, and this is what you're seeing right now. I did a traditional illustration and then I painted it with Procreate. This is what that illustration looked like. I literally just drew right onto my watercolor paper and inked it, and I can't tell you how good it felt to sketch and paint traditionally again. It was so relaxing and messy, and it was great. Now, while doing the color test, I knew that I wanted to do this very flowy, watercolory background, so I had to kind of protect the face and body of the character. And since my liquid frisket is still in a box somewhere, I used masking tape and washi tape to mask off the character's face, so that way I could get this nice flowy watercolor aesthetic that I was missing so much. And you'll notice that I used a lot of water here, and I let the colors run into each other. But pro tip, if you want a very smooth gradient that, say, goes from yellow to pink to blue, and you want it to be flatter than what I've created here, you'll want to use a much bigger, maybe a wide flat brush, something bigger than what I'm using here. I stuck with the smaller brush specifically because I wanted to show a difference in texture and I wanted the colors to flow into each other. I won't get too in-depth with the process of this because, one, you can see what I'm doing, and two, if, like I said, you've watched my videos before, you're pretty familiar with my process. But I wanted to talk a little bit about kind of the struggle with getting back to traditional medium after so long with working digitally, and it took my brain kind of a minute to remember to be patient with the watercolor washes and not try and get the exact color that I was looking for down in one application, and that I had to layer it and let it dry and, you know, do small parts at a time. And it just it was kind of a kick in the butt reminder to do things correctly. I love how this piece turned out. I love that it's actually probably one of the more mixed media pieces that I've ever done. You just saw my watercolor palette, which is the base of this. This is my Winsor watercolor that I use on most of my pieces, but you'll see later on I also go in with color pencil and some gouache, AcrylaGouache actually, and some acrylic ink. And I try and use all of the medias that I've been working with in the past and use those things to accomplish the look that I'm going for, and not just restrict myself to watercolor, knowing that there are other ways to accomplish what I want. I think it's actually kind of interesting that a lot of the work that I'm personally drawn to is actually digital, and my preferred medium of choice is more traditional. I think taking these past few months to work in digital has kind of shown me, or given me an idea of the effects that I want in my traditional work, and helped me to think of, like, what do I have in my traditional supplies that I can use to create these same effects, And not having worked digitally before, I didn't really think of that, I guess. I don't know. I think having worked digitally has kind of changed my perspective, because for a long time I was like, I'm a watercolorist and I can only work in watercolor, but being that I started kind of experimenting a little with other mediums and then went to digital, I realized like, oh, you know, this medium does this and this medium is good for that. And there's no real reason why I have to stick to one or the other. And if I want that same digital effect done traditionally, I can just incorporate different mediums. I don't know why I didn't think of that before. I feel like it's pretty self-explanatory, but it never really occurred to me until I was working on this piece. And I feel like I've done mixed media before, but not with that mindset, you know? I specifically had, since I had the digital piece that I finished, that I was looking at, I had, you know, in my mind specific ways to accomplish that look with traditional mediums. I feel like I'm repeating myself, sorry. Let's move on. In case you haven't noticed, this video is not scripted, so it might get a little bit rambly or repetitive, and I just kind of wanted to chat with you guys today. I'm happy to be back. I'm happy to be working traditionally. I feel like I don't know, there's something about it that feels more real, and not to knock digital, because like I said, I love digital art and digital artists, and there are some amazing things that can be done with digital, but since I like to do portraits, there's something about the paint, and you can't ever fully know what it's going to do. Like, you can try and make it as precise as you want, but sometimes the temperature in the room or the humidity in the room will affect the way the paint dries, and then you will, you know, get a paint spot somewhere that you didn't mean to if your hand shakes. It creates these imperfections that make it feel so much more realistic, especially for a portrait. Like, you have skin blemishes on a real person. Like, no one's skin tone is completely perfectly even all the way around. There's different colors and, you know, just nicks, things that are wrong with skin that you don't normally see in digital, because unless you're doing it on purpose, it will end up being super perfect. Sorry, I'm rambling again. I wanted to mention that's the AcrylaGouache. It was Holbien AcrylaGouache, and it's a gouache and acrylic kind of mixture, so it works just like gouache, where it's like funnily enough a thicker watercolor, but because it's AcrylaGouache, when you put down a layer and you let it dry, it dries solid. Like, it dries like acrylic. It's not going anywhere. There's no, I mean, I suppose if you really scrubbed at it and put a lot of water into it, you would be able to pick up some of the color, but chances are you're really just ripping up the paper. But once this is dry, you shouldn't be able to reactivate it by putting down another color. And I don't remember if I mentioned in the beginning or not, but Vince and I moved from Chicago to Phoenix. So for Valentine's Day, or rather the Sunday, we did a whole bunch of stuff the whole weekend. The Sunday after Valentine's Day, we went to the Desert Botanical Gardens, and we're in Phoenix in the desert, so I've been kind of looking at cactus plants and all these just like beautiful things that we never got a chance to see in Chicago, and so that's what inspired this piece. That's why she has this towering green cactus-like / Marge Simpson hair. Pretty sure I just developed the list, but regardless, I wanted to go with the gouache here because it's got this really like soft velvety texture once it's dried, where I don't know, it's like super soothing to touch it, even though like I tried to touch my paintings very minimally because you don't want the oils from your hands to mess with the overall look of the piece, and that can happen. But I don't know, I love the look of it. It looks so soft and fuzzy, and that's kind of what I was imagining for her hair. I don't know if you can hear the birds outside my window, but it's like a tropical garden out here. I swear, they're always singing to each other in the morning, and it's the cutest thing I've ever heard. I'll try and give you a soundbite. Hold on. But yeah, they're super active like all the time, mostly in the morning. It's just really peaceful here. My apartment is in a complex. We're right by the pool. There's all these beautiful palm trees around and all the singing birds. And I was thinking that I should definitely get a wind chime, and when we moved in, there was already one here waiting for me. So I didn't have to buy a wind chime. It was great. So far, we love it here. There is so much light and so much to discover. It's like 74 degrees today, and honestly, this is probably the most active and stress-free that I've ever been in February, which I'm used to being pretty dark and dreary. You'll probably notice that we're coming up to the end of this painting, and you'll also notice that it's actually in two pieces. That's actually because the initial drawing I just did on the one page, and I thought that her hair leading off the page would be enough to insinuate its height, but I think it really didn't give the effect that I was looking for. So I did a second page where it goes from almost daylight into the night sky, as if her hair had then grown from dusk all the way up into the atmosphere with the stars. Well, I hope you all enjoyed this piece, and I hope you enjoyed catching up with me a little. I won't be getting back to regular vids just yet, mostly because I have some ideas that I want to have backlogged so that way they're ready before they're due. As always, I thank you all so much for watching and sticking with me during this absence, and I'll see you much sooner in the next one. Bye!